My dad and his new wife ambushed me over dinner, demanding I care for his disabled stepdaughter after they're gone. But I refused. My parents are divorced, and I, nearly adult male, mostly live with my mom. My dad married Rebecca 5 years ago, and Rebecca and her daughter Yasmin moved in with her. Yasmin's preteen now, and she's severely disabled. She can't talk or do stuff for herself. I don't know much about her condition overall. I never spent much time with Rebecca or her, but I learned some things over the last few years. I know Rebecca has a fund set aside for Yasmin's future care. My dad has been paying into that, and he's invested more into her future than he ever did into mine, which is a sore point for me, but I know she needs it more and all. Yasmin's dad doesn't do anything for her, so my dad took on the role of ensuring she'd be cared for. But they're worried about what happens when they die. If they die tomorrow, the money is there for her care, but Yasmin's father doesn't care what happens to her, and there's no family. This came up the other day. Dad had asked me to spend the day with him, and I did. He asked me to come to his place for dinner, and I went to the house. But dinner didn't happen because they asked me to look after Yasmin and be a big brother to her when they're gone, to make sure she's taken care of in the home and take care of her myself if I need to. They said she's my sister now, and we might not be blood, but she's my family and she needs me. I said no. I told them I wasn't taking responsibility for her. Dad told me I needed to for him and that he doesn't ask a lot. I admit I told him he never gives me a lot. He said that's not fair and I shouldn't punish Yasmin for it. He told me I needed to step up and be a bigger man than I was acting. Rebecca asked me how I could be around her sweet girl and not want to protect her. I've told her I've hardly been around Yasmin and I don't feel a family bond or loyalty toward her. And I said they won't bully me into it. I left because they only got angrier. Dad called my mom's phone looking for me a couple of times since, and my mom had to tell him to never speak to me the way he was trying to because I didn't owe him the peace of mind for caring for his stepkid when he died. She really stood up for me. But Dad and Rebecca are saying I'm a heartless idiot for saying no. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your dad went about it in the worst way possible. It doesn't seem like you two are close and trying to trick you with dinner, so you would be obliged to care for your stepsister. That was a big crappy thing to do. Glad your mom has you back. If your dad brings that up again, tell them they should arrange for a good institution to take care of Yasmin after they're gone. To build a family feeling, a parent actually has to be a parent and be in their kid's life. Opie's dad didn't bother and Opie's stepmother didn't bother. Now when they make calls upon Opie's family obligation, they wonder why Opie feels no pull and no ties. Disagree. It's incredibly manipulative to frame their peace of mind as Opie's obligation. He has every right to focus on his own future without this burden. Even if she was biological sister, Opie shouldn't feel obligated to take care of her or any parents in the future. All parents should come up with a plan for themselves and any dependent children that doesn't include guilt-tripping or manipulating their kids. I have an adult disabled child and have had to have this will you be his guardian when I die discussion. I would never, ever, ever ask a child to take this on. A nearly adult teen has absolutely zero real idea what this means and can't possibly make an informed choice. Opie's dad and stepmom didn't want him to be informed, of course. They wanted him to do as they ordered. Jerks. Tell them she already got your inheritance. She's not getting your life on top of that. I, 35 female, have been with my husband James, 39, for 12 years, and we have this argument like clockwork every birthday and Christmas. But I've had enough. I hate surprises and I hate surprise gifts even more because I lived in with my parents and being forced to keep a present to not offend someone bothers me because then I grapple with frustration, guilt, and general annoyance because now there's a thing taking up a space that I don't know what to do with. James, on the other hand, loves surprise gifts, but he's super picky. He does this thing where he'll tell someone, "Oh, I'm all right with anything." But when he gets that anything, he will remark about how he actually wanted XYZ, which dampens the mood and makes him sound so childishly ungrateful. It drives me mad because the most hypocritical thing is that if I do that to him, i.e. say, "Oh, I actually wanted size Z," he'll get upset and say that I should be grateful. E.g., he bought me a dress he thought I'd like for my birthday, despite me telling him over and over and over and over and over again how much I would have liked a specific pair of earrings. I gave a weak thanks, and he was sulky all evening, especially when my friends bought me something else off my wish list, and I was so happy. And it's not about the price either, because the things he surprises me with are always either more expensive or around the same price as what I actually asked for. I've tried my hardest to figure out what he'd like, but I always somehow miss the mark. For instance, one year I managed to force him to tell me that he'd like any keyword there, Apple product. But when I got him a new iPad to replace his old one, he said he'd prefer AirPods. I returned the iPad, but he got upset. Another year he told me he wanted jogging socks from a specific brand. Still, when he got them, he said he wanted another variant of it. Another year, he kept talking about a specific type of wallet for 6 months straight, sending me posts about it, reviews, whatever. And I got it for him thinking I'd cracked the code. You know what he said? You're absolutely correct if you guessed. Actually, I wanted something else. Rinse and repeat. This year, I tried to ask him again to at least give me a hint to work with, and he playfully told me to surprise him. Years of pent-up frustration got the best of me, and I told him that he's an ungrateful child and I will not be surprising him. If he wasn't going to tell me, then he gets nothing. I also told him to stop surprising me with stuff I don't even want, because he's a hypocrite whose feelings will get hurt. If I don't fall to my knees thanking him, I exaggerate for something I don't want. I'm done coddling him over gifts because it's stupid and causing undue stress to me. As usual, he's gone off to sulk, and I feel terrible for lashing out at him. Am I the idiot? OP, you're aware that he just likes making you doubt yourself. He will never be okay with anything. You get him because it's not about the gift. It's about the power. This is also why he never gets you what you want. You don't know what you want, and he does. Bingo. It's a telltale trait of covert narcissists to be constantly setting people up to make up for what they did to the narc, even though the crime was just not giving the right gift. There is literally no winning for up, because this is not about gifts to make other people happy. He's using gifts to exert control and make up feel indebted to him so he can have power over her. Yeah, my narc mother was exactly like this. She was so difficult to buy gifts for, and she threw so many tantrums about getting gifts that weren't perfect. So she started buying her own presents and then complained about having to do that. She also ruined a present I got her when I was maybe a young teen, and I still vividly remember how excited I'd been to have found it for her. It absolutely crushed me. Ope, you need to divorce this creep. I'm a mom to 3 kids, 20 male, 18 and teen female. My 18-year-old son has been dating his girlfriend, also 18, for about 7 or 8 months now. He only properly introduced us to her around 2 months ago, and since then she's been coming over frequently. My husband and I work, so if she comes home, it's usually just the two of them and my teen daughter in the house. A few days ago, I came home to find my daughter had locked her door. I called her for dinner, but she didn't come down. This was odd behavior for her, so later that night, I asked her what was wrong. It took some time for her to admit something had happened. Apparently, the girlfriend had been in the kitchen while my daughter was making a snack for herself. She'd said something along the lines of big back behavior. I had no idea what that meant. So I looked it up, and apparently, it's a trend where people use big back to imply fat person behavior. My daughter was hurt by the comment, especially since she said it wasn't the first time the girlfriend had made remarks like this, and she threw away the food. She hates crying in front of people, but she was tearing up while speaking to me. I was very angry on her behalf. I first spoke to my son about it and asked him to address it with his girlfriend. He told me it was just a trend, and she'd meant it jokingly, so he wasn't going to get into a fight with his girlfriend about that. But I didn't think it was a joke. It had clearly hurt my daughter badly, and she can usually handle jokes, but I think this really got to her. So I decided to talk to the girlfriend directly. I wasn't rude, but I spoke sternly, and I made it clear that comments like that weren't acceptable in our home. The girlfriend looked a bit taken aback, didn't say anything except sorry, and hasn't returned to our house since. Now my son is mad at me. He told me I shouldn't have confronted her and that I'd made things awkward between him and his girlfriend. Now he thinks I should have let him handle it instead. I don't feel guilty about it. I'm still angry on my daughter's behalf. But my son loves that girl, and this is the first time she's acting distant with him, apparently. So I was wondering if I was the idiot to confront her like that. Edit, my daughter is an active girl. She does ballet and gymnastics and loves outdoor activities in general. If anything, I'm concerned she isn't eating enough. The most important thing to me is that she's healthy, not the idiot. Geez, you told him and he didn't handle it. In fact, he told you he wasn't going to handle it. I'm sad that he didn't have his sister's back and took sis being hurt so lightly. You have nothing to be sorry about. Your son, on the other hand, is thinking to do because his girlfriend is bullying his own family, and that shouldn't be okay. The girlfriend's comment will stick with your daughter for a long time. I'm 42 and still remember being 12 years old making microwave popcorn in the kitchen. My mom's looked at me with a disgusted expression and said, "You shouldn't be eating that. It'll wreck your figure." Sorry to say the damage is done, and she will never forget those words. If your son doesn't understand what body shaming is, and the term does come under body shaming, you need to sit down with him one-on-one and talk with him. Ask him to put himself in his sister's shoes, or better yet, if tomorrow his body changes due to something he has no control over and his girlfriend decides to mock him over it constantly without meaning anything, how would he feel? And you might consider that your kids could use a little more parental time somehow. I, 34 female, I'm turning 35 next week, and my boyfriend, 33, offered to plan a dinner for me. I was super excited because I'd never had anyone do that for me. I told him I wanted to keep it small, just a few close friends and family, and he agreed. Last night while we were going over the final stuff, he mentioned inviting a couple of his friends too. I was confused because we talked about it being my close circle, and his friends, who I like but barely know, weren't part of that. Mind you, I met them only once. When I asked why he invited them, he just said that he felt it'd be more fun with a bigger group and went past it. I told him I didn't feel comfortable with that. I really wanted a dinner with the people closest to me, like I do every year. We've been dating for a little less than a year, and this is my first birthday with him. He said I was being a little selfish because it's not like they're strangers and he'd already invited them, so it would be awkward to uninvite them now. I told him I'd like it if he explained to them that this was meant to be a small personal dinner and apologized for the mix-up. He got annoyed and said I was overreacting and I should just loosen up because they were fun and would make the night better. Now he's in a bad mood and I'm second-guessing myself. I don't want to seem ungrateful since he's putting effort into planning the dinner, but I also feel like I'm being ignored. So am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Invite your whole family, friends and neighbors to his birthday next time, and tell him you thought it would be more fun. And if he complains, say, loosen up, dude. But petty things aside, he went behind your back and did something he knew would not make you comfortable. He wasn't thinking about you. He was thinking about himself in that moment. Honestly, why are you letting him guilt trip you like that? It was your birthday, not his. Right? Exactly this. Then he says you are the one being selfish. It's your darn birthday, so it's appropriate to consider only what you want. He can invite his friends on his birthday and tell him to stop sulking. He's 33 for goodness sake. You've been dating for less than a year. This is the best he'll be. Now you know what he means by being thoughtful, what he considers to be important on your birthday, and what his priorities are. If you're comfortable with something that's important to you being rearranged to suit him, stay in the relationship. If this isn't the life you want, now's the time to say goodbye. I'm 32 female with a kindergartner son, and next April, he will enter first standard. He's currently in preschool nearby, and next year I plan to send him to the best private school in the area. Its annual tuition is around $20,000 USD, not America. I studied there. My husband studied there. We met there. I lost my husband when my son was a baby due to cancer. I work for my parents' business, and from my husband I got life insurance and savings, and the house went to my son and me. I invested most in my son's name and some for myself. I met my current husband, 38 male, 3 years back. He has a young grammar schooler son and a tween daughter. We got married in 2023. His children go to a decent school too. His ex-wife and he share the expense. We moved to his house. So my husband said to send either his kids to the same school as my son or my son to theirs. I told him my son's education couldn't be compromised. His children's education is his responsibility, as well as his ex-wife's. We share a family budget for clothes, travel, and gift expenses, but not education and children's savings, which was clear from day one. He says he doesn't want his children to feel like second-class citizens to my son who will go to the most expensive school. I told him he and his ex-wife could compromise their savings and pay for their children. Frankly, the kids in my stepchildren's school come from terrible backgrounds, and I don't want my son to mingle with the crowd there. Even if it is a private school, it has a growing rough crowd. Spoiled kids with terrible families. I can't afford another $40,000 for stepchildren's education. And frankly, their education is their parents' responsibility, and it was made clear even before the wedding. He says I'm being elitist, but as a mother, my son's education comes first. The school where I'm going to send my son throws such kids out, and most kids come from prestigious families with great networks. I want him to become successful like his father, and our marriage has hit a rock. He says his kids will resent my son, but I told him even before marriage that I would send my son to this school only. He said he thought he would change my mind. My husband is sleeping in another room and I'm missing him, but my child comes first. Also to add, my late husband's house is 50-50 to me and my son. I can't sell it or anything unless my son decides it in adulthood. So we both have homes to live in. He didn't want to move into my house, so my son and I moved in with him. Bob, your new husband, waited for you to be married and under his roof to show his true colors. He knew you were sending your son to the school and admits to thinking he could get you to change your mind. And when he didn't, he plays the victim, acting like he didn't know the deal going into things, making you out to be some stingy bad guy who doesn't care about his kids. That's just highly manipulative. You married a gold digger, and your son will be paying the price if you really don't think your husband and his kids won't show or take their resentment out on him. Go back to your own house and be rid of this leech. I truly hope you two don't have children together, because if he's whining and sleeping in another room, imagine how he'd be if you two shared a child. Then he would expect his child with you to share what was your husband's inheritance with his child. This is a big mess that could grow even bigger. Everyone's the idiot here. It's not your job to pay for his kid's education. He's the idiot for trying to squeeze money out of you for that. But you're the idiot for thinking your kids won't be impacted by what happens to his kids. If his children are hanging out around gangs and drugs, do you really think your son living under the same roof isn't going to get dragged into it? He is outnumbered, and they are older. Whatever they do is automatically going to be cooler to him. It's in your own child's best interest for his step-siblings to get out of that situation.